You're tuned to Evergreen Media Network. I am Cindy Schwartz, and this is the Patient Partner Show. We're broadcast on 107.9 FM and also podcast on Spreaker, so look us up on that. Jeannie Roller is my co-host. We're talking healthcare issues, Jeannie, on this show. That's why we call it Patient Partners. Today we're going to talk about bullying, and we're also going to bring into effect the whistleblowers that try to help patients try to get things done and how they're bullied and how a lot of people do not want to be whistleblowers. And you know, it's a giant circle in real life, but so sad in the medical community that we have to even talk about this because it exists and because we try to get help for people if we possibly can because we're in the system ourselves. I mean, everybody needs health care at some point in their life, certainly when you get older. So let's talk about that. You have a couple of articles, Jeannie, that you've read that seem to be apropos for all of this, and you brought this topic up.
Yeah. Well, Cindy, I mean, when you think about it, bullying is a big problem in a lot of workplaces, and you know the medical field has it. I know I've read articles. You know, one thing we talk about, especially for men, there aren't enough male nurses, male MAs, etc. for men, and you know I read an article stating that one reason is that when these men go to nursing school or when they go to MA school in jobs that typically are thought of as for women, that they are bullied by their instructors and the other students because they don't want them in that nursing school program or they don't want them in the MA program. So a lot of them will drop out. The other thing is older nurses tend to bully younger nurses a lot. It's amazing how much of that is going on. And then you and I have talked about this before, that when medical harm happens, when it was happening to you and when it was happening to me, we wondered why no one ever stepped in to help when they saw it. They just closed their eyes. Well, the bullying atmosphere in the medical world is so horrible that a lot of times they will just remain silent and close their eyes and pretend like it didn't happen because they don't want the bullying to happen to them. And I know I read an article about a nurse in Florida who was a whistleblower who went to the proper authority or whoever
the chain of command
talk about chain of command to talk about patient care and how horrible some patients were being treated by nurses. And these nurses did retaliation on her because they knew that she was taking care of a colony of feral cats, and they would behead these cats and put them on her doorstep to send her a message that they didn't like her whistleblowing on them.
Well, we've read so many articles and talked about them that that's the tough part. I mean, if people do, we talk about, you know, why doesn't somebody say something? And then when somebody does, those kind of things happen. And you're not making that stuff up. And it's just so absurd. It's just so sickening, whatever. There's a lady that I'm trying to get on the podcast that was in business. We talked about this on another podcast, that just became an RN, and they put her in a situation that she really didn't have any experience doing, and that was in the OR, and some things happened, and she saw different things with the doctor, but because her experience was in business and not necessarily medicine, she was more forthright, if you will, and said something to the doctor. And the other nurses said, wow, you know, we've been trying to do that for a really long time, but we're afraid to do that. And, you know, because we figured we'd be fired. So there you go. I mean, and it worked out well, she said. I wanted to come on and tell the story. It worked out well for her. She didn't get fired. She didn't get bullied. But the other ones were just so reticent to say anything. And so how many patients got hurt because of that? And you and I, that's what we were involved with. You know, they knew. In my case, 3 people told me they knew, but they couldn't get anything done about it. So.
Right. And a lot of times, that's true. Nurses are afraid to say anything about a doctor because of the higher chain of command there. Doctors kind of are above nurses. And so therefore they do have that fear built into them that if they say something bad will happen to them. So, I mean, the whole system needs to be looked at. They need to open it up. It needs transparency because as long as they keep all this these problems in-house, then they will just keep festering and growing. And, young nurses shouldn't be bullied by older nurses because there's a lot of stress in healthcare anyhow.
Right.
And to be bullied by the people that are supposed to be their part of your peer group, it's horrible. It's a bad feeling. So there needs to be something done. And as long as this atmosphere of don't speak up because something bad will happen to you persists, then it's hard to get changes made in order to make healthcare better for everyone, especially for patients. So, as long as the change actually needs to be more from the inside than rather from the outside,
right.
Because those are the people who know, and if they put their foot down and say no more, then they're more likely to get action.
Well, and that instance can happen in any job across the board, wherever you work with the bullying and that in the healthcare. I mean, right. To me, it's even more serious, in my opinion, because you're dealing with people's lives, and so you got to bring your best game to the field. Hopefully, the bullying, as far as the older employees in healthcare versus the younger employees, that it's an isolated incident, so hopefully it's not across the board in a lot of different places. I mean, I don't know any statistics on that personally, but it's hard enough to get people in the field, the same as teachers, right. Police, and all that. I mean, when you have to deal with that as well, I mean, who needs all the stress and all the aggravation? I have talked with people that have become recent nurses, and they're like, some of the stuff that they know that they have to put up with is just, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. I don't know why it's prevalent at all. I have no idea. I mean, hopefully, it would be isolated, but I don't know. I really don't. So if they're writing articles about it, it must be happening somewhere. Sadly.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of articles about it. And, we've talked about before, because we know that most of these nurses and MAs are taught how to handle patient bodily dignity correctly. Mm-hmm. And we wonder where it goes wrong. And, when these new people come into the profession, then these older people are most likely the ones saying, you have to do it like this. We don't do it like this. We don't care. This is how we do it. So, it's that whole atmosphere that needs to be opened up, and it needs to be changed, and it has to come from within, is my opinion.
You're right. Well, each facility, absolutely.
Right. And, it is amazing that women want to be doctors, women want to do this and that, but a lot of them don't want to see males in the nursing field, in the MA field, because that's typically been a female field. And the bullying that some of these, nursing students, male nursing students, have described, it's just completely horrendous, because, as I said before, it's just not coming from their fellow students, but it's also coming from the instructors. So that's kind of a double jeopardy there for these men who are trying to become nurses and who are trying to become MAs. We need a wide variety to serve both male and female patients, so that as a patient you can choose who you want rather than having to take what you get.
Yeah. So. Well, hopefully that day will come soon. I wonder too. I remember back in the day, they were male, what we'll call orderlies. I don't know if they had the same education and whatever as an RN. I'm sure it was a different distinction, but it didn't seem to be. I mean, it was categorized different. I don't remember hearing these kind of stories, because it was like a designated. This is a male orderly, this is a female nurse, blah 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 blah. I don't really know. We have to do a little bit more research on that, on why it seemed to be more, I don't know, streamlined, if you will, my opinion. But, I mean, healthcare, you want to get the best care. On that note, stay listening to Evergreen Media Network.